Welcome friends to my third fly tying video. My name's Scott Blackhurst, and from my Instagram friends, Flying High Again. Today's fly that I'm going to tie for you is kind of a modification on Shark's Caddis Pupa. To save some time, I've already got a hook. It's a TMC 2457 size 10 with some Zonker lead tape wrapped around it to add a little bit extra weight, along with a black bead head. The thread I'm going to use today is Unithread 8/0 in black. So let's get started. So I kind of did the tape wrap and that to save some time, but once we get that on, I'm just going to put on a layer of thread, cover up that lead tape. Doesn't have to be completely covered, but I cover up enough we'll call that good. Then I take the hook and move it down a little bit so it's easier to get to the back portion of the hook, since we are going to tie the body down around the curve of the hook. The tail, I'm just going to take some bottom of a black hackle, and it's the fuzzy stuff that you otherwise wouldn't use. I'm just going to take just a few tips, and then when I tie those in, I'm going to tie them in so that when they're completely tied in, the tail is just gonna be just a tiny tip. Tie that down and around, keeping it on top of the hook shank. And then at the end, I'm going to pull those fibers up and make a couple of wraps underneath them, just to kind of keep them so they'll stay up a little bit. And tie up. And you can either break the waste fibers off and tie them in. And the body, I'm going to use Entron yarn in tan. And here you want to make sure you get a long enough piece, because we're going to double this up, and the first half of the body is just going to be a simple wrap up. And then the second part is going to be actually made into a dubbing loop. And we're going to put some hare's ear in there. So I kind of split it up. I have a longer half and a shorter half here. And just take the whole thing and we'll tie it in as one piece. Tie that down the shank. And you want to wrap it down so you have no space between the tail and when the body's going to start. Wrap back up with your thread. We're going to take that shorter half And I'm going to use my rotary function here, save a little bit of time. Just wrap that up. Doesn't have to be perfect. Just going to cover up the lead and the thread there. And tie that off. And cut the waste. Now here we're going to take our bobbin, and I don't know if they put a little glue on this Antron yarn to kind of keep it all together, but we want to get rid of that. We want to be able to split this thread or the yarn, so need to break those fibers free. We don't want to break the yarn, so you got to be a little careful here. Okay, now we're getting it. So now that I got it separated, I'm going to split it in two. Then I have a hare's mask natural here. I'm just going to cut a little section of the hair out. And so you got just a little bit of hair. So depends on how much hair you want to add to this fly. I don't add a lot. So here a little goes a long way. So I'm just gonna take some light fibers and just lay it across one section of the Antron yarn. And you don't want it clumped. Make it very light, very spread out. Just take that other half and lay those two together, basically forming a dubbing loop, and then we're going to spin that Antron yarn up. And then what I'll do is kind of remove any of the stuff that's too thick or not caught in the yarn. You want to keep that spun up very tightly. Then I'm going to use my rotary function again on the vise. And we're just going to wind that up. Try to do touching wraps on this Antron, which gives it a very nice segmented body. And tie it off. Remove that waste piece, and any hair that I have up at front, I kind of just fold back and just tie that down so it's facing back a little bit, and then come through, kind of pull any of the hair that seems too long. So well, I don't want a lot of hair on the fly myself. How much hair you have on yours is up to you. And just kind of build that front section up a little bit. Here we can put back in our hook so it's up in front. And the next piece, I'm going to use some brown stone. You can use black. When we're done with this thorax area, we're going to put some clear cure goo on it, hydro, and it will almost look black. Here you do want a fairly long piece too, even though your thorax is not very wide. Take those, wrap that in, pull that back so we don't have so much cutting to do up front there. Okay, so what I would do is take a few wraps here and then come back. So you want the thorax fairly even, so when you twist this yarn up, we're going to do just like we did with our body. You're going to twist it, and then we're going to tie it on, making segments. This way, when we tie in our legs, the segments are going to give our thread somewhere to hide in. Even though, like I said, once we put the clear cure goo on, everything is going to look black anyway. Cut off that tag piece, a couple more wraps, and then I wrap back in the segments that we just created, and you tie back right to where your body meets your thorax area. Now here, the legs I'm creating from golden pheasant tail tip fibers. And to save a little bit of time for the video, I've already pulled some out, but what I'll do is I'll show you how I do this. So I have the feather. We're going to come in here, separate the fibers, and pull one off. If it breaks like that one did, just continue pulling it off and get rid of it. So what we want is we want that fiber kind of to pull off the stem a little bit. Let's see if you can see that. It makes some really buggy looking legs, and then what I'll do is I'll take a marker and color those in black or whatever color I want them. So now I'm going to turn the fly upside down, and we're going to take a fiber and carefully make one wrap just to kind of hold it. Now if you pull it, the thread tight, your leg will actually stand up. I'm not sure if the camera's capturing that. And so to save some time also, all I'm going to do is four legs. 2 sets of 2. Though I usually, when I have a decent sized thorax, I'm going to tie in 6 legs. The other side. So you just make one wrap, and then you can pull that fiber either way to get the correct length of the leg you want. And then come in and cut that waist piece off, being careful not to cut your leg off. And then when you get that tied in, you advance the thread up, keeping it inside the body segment, or the thorax segment that we created. Usually when I get them in, make a couple of wraps of the thread on them to make sure they're tied in, and then advance your thread. So here we're done tying in the legs, and here I'm gonna whip finish. And either cut or break that thread off. Then using the bobbin, we're going to make sure our legs are spread the way we want them. Then we're going to take our clear cure goo hydro, and we're just going to make a couple of drops here right on that bottom section. And that Antron yarn is going to soak that up. And we're going to cure it. And here, before you cure, you want to make sure your legs are in the position that you want, because once you set this goo, they're not going to go anywhere. And then I'll turn it over. We'll do the top side. And let it run down onto the sides also. Make sure we've got all area covered there. Then cure it. And then I do one more coat. And there's the finished fly. Very buggy. And looks very realistic when it's wet. So as always, thanks for watching. If you have any comments on what I can do better, any other flies you'd like to see tied, or any questions, just let me know. Thanks for watching.